welcome to Brian's Garage. Today we're going to discuss some seam sealers. We got three different kinds here. One is Sem Gray. This also comes in beige and black. I just used gray because that's what they had in stock, but pretty good stuff. One thing I like about it is it comes in a plastic tube, so it keeps better. And also the end, the tip here, screws on and off, so if you let this harden up, like you can see I have right here, you can always unscrew this and then take a screwdriver and push that hardened up piece of seam sealer out of the nozzle. Screw it back on, you're good to go. So this works pretty well. I like it. It's about $20. Very nice seam sealer. This one here is a SpeedoKote. This is like a low-grade bodywork seam sealer. Comes in a cardboard tube. It's just like a normal caulking tube. The tip is not replaceable. You can see I've had to cut it back in order to get all the goodie out of it. Now they say it's a fast setting seam sealer, and it's not. It sets very slowly. We'll get into that. This last one is Loctite. You get this from Lowe's or Home Depot. This is for roof and flashing. It's just the same sort of thing. It's in a cardboard tube with a non-removable tip, and I was pretty impressed with this. Stinks to high heaven though. This one here really stinks for a very long time, but I do think this is better than this. I always recommend getting black if you can, because once you paint something, if you bump one of these seam sealers, especially when they're fairly fresh, they're flexible and it'll crack the paint off. So it's best if you have a black color underneath there. That's the gun I use. I use this one here is a newborn, but you can see it's supported with the metal rod on both sides, so it's very stiff and strong. Pretty good one there. I don't remember where I got that, but I recommend something like that for pushing this urethane out, because normally it's pretty viscous. All right, so. Here are some beads and some brushed beads that I laid out just so we could compare each one of these. Now this first one here is this SEM, and it is, you see I just laid it down. You can see it kept all of its marks, pretty thick, and it hardened up in about 3 days to full strength, and it's hard all the way through. It's pretty hard. And then I laid out a bead here, and I dipped my paintbrush in some xylene and just brushed it. Then I brushed it back the other way just to see if it would screw it up. But this here brushed very nicely. I would recommend only brushing in one direction. I did go backwards just to see how it would do, and it did pretty good. But normally you just want to do one direction. There's another bead I let out. You can see that when I was finished, I just wiped it off there, and no stringers, so it's pretty thick coming out of the tube. Now the next one here, this is the SpeedoKote. That's this guy right here, fast setting seam sealer, right? Well, no, this seam sealer took a very long time to set up, and it's softer than this. I think the SEM has some fillers in it. This is very soft, even now. I push that down, you can see how it kind of, do you see that? It's still soft in the middle, and this is months later, man, months later. You can see how runny it was, very runny. You see the string come all the way across here? This here is the same thing. This is where I brushed it. Notice it didn't retain any of the brush marks. It's self-leveling. You see how all these beads were pretty tall and about 3/8 in diameter, but this one here, it just kind of smooshed down and ran out. It's very thin, and it self-levels. It's a self-leveling seam sealer. It might be good for like the around the roof of your C10 pickup to fill up the rain gutter, because it is self-leveling. It's very thin, and matter of fact, let me show you on the car. Remember we did some work over here on this on the cowl for this 68442. This is that SpeedoKote seam sealer, and this was all brushed one direction. You didn't hold any of the brush marks. Look how thin it was. right here, there's a little gap between the cow panel and the shoulder. There's a gap, and it just seeped into that gap and almost lost its complete seal right here, because if you need to go underneath and flow into some cracks, well, this the SpeedoKote stuff does a very good job of that. But it's very thin, will not hold the brush marks. Down here on the side, this here is actually the SEM. You can see where I got up against it with my shirt. That's how firm that SEM is. It kept the pattern off my shirt on here. But this, and all the way across the top here, this is all that SpeedoKote stuff. So yeah, I suppose the SpeedoKote's all right, but I prefer actually prefer the last one here, which is the Loctite. Now this was only like $7, and as you can see here, it held its shape when it came out of the tube. It didn't flatten out like this stuff, and it firmed up to, I don't know, it's probably not quite as hard as this now that this has had time to set up, but this has only been here for about 2 weeks, and this has been here for over a month. Both of these have been over a month. But it's, if I push down on it, it's pretty soft, but I think it's pretty much firmed up all the way. But when it comes out of the tube, it's not runny. It doesn't have any stringers like the Loctite did. I think it would paint okay. I think it would hold paint no problem. And one of the things that I thought was really cool about this, here's where I tooled it with my finger and just I used some of that xylene. Just wiped it down after I put a bead right here. And it tools very nice. This is that SpeedoKote again, and it doesn't tool very well. If you put some xylene on your finger and wipe it down, it's really thin. It's not going to be where you thought it was when you finished wiping it. It's going to shrink up, guys. It's going to shrink up, and so be aware of that. If you use that SpeedoKote, it's going to shrink up and not be as tall and thick as when you tooled it with your finger. You'll come back later and it'll be like, oh my God, where'd it go? All right, so this is a Loctite bead. You can see, there you go. This, I just took a finger and you can see it kept my fingerprint marks. And that's when it was fresh. So it does a very good job of keeping the brush marks. Only go in one direction. But you see, that looks just like factory, man. That looks like the firewall perfectly. So I recommend this Loctite Loctite PL roof and flashing for doing your firewall or other parts of your car. Just brush it with some xylene, one direction only, and it will look just like factory. It's really pretty impressive. Stinks to high heaven though, guys. Here's what happens if you brush it the opposite direction, and you can see it looks terrible. So only brush it one way, guys. If you go the other way, it's gonna come out looking like this, and that's just not very good. But if you go one direction, it's gonna look just like factory. That's $8 a tube. Now, like I said, it is very soft, sort of. Pretty soft compared to the SEM is hard compared to this stuff. And SpeedoKote's currently a little bit harder than this too. So if it's going someplace where you might have a exterior paint that might get pressed, you probably don't want to use it there because somebody presses down on it, it'll crack the paint off. But in hidden places like around the wheel arches and quarter panels and stuff like that, the firewall, I think that this Loctite PL is a winner, guys. I would recommend it. This SpeedoKote, I'm not going to recommend it except for maybe for places where you need a self-leveling seam sealer. It'd work great for that. And of course the SEM, $20 a tube. It's awesome. If you don't want any problems, just use the SEM. It's $20 a tube, so it's more than twice. But it's really good. It sets up in about 3 days. It's almost full hardness in 3 days, whereas the SpeedoKote took like 2 weeks just to sort of get hard. I mean, I came back in a week and put my finger in it, and then it held that print. It never came back. So This takes a very long time. So it's fast setting. It takes a very long time to set up. And this reached pretty much what I think was most of the hardness within a week. So the Loctite's not too bad. I don't think it's ever going to be as hard as the SEM once it's cured, but it doesn't have those fillers in it. But I think it's a pretty good option if you can't get to the SEM. You don't have a store, you need it today, just go down to Home Depot or Lowe's and pick up this Loctite PL, because it does work, guys. It'll work for you. So that's the seam sealer Shootout, and there you go. Talk to you later.